Hello, 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 and welcome back to the Mission Accepted podcast. Thank you so much for being here. And even though we have another Rockstar podcast host, I still am going to tell you you're the best podcast audience ever because you are so active. And I just want to say that I thank you and I appreciate that. And so do the people that come on to share their stories because they really, on our show, come to share their stories to inspire you, motivate you. And you know what? We let you laugh at us sometimes because entrepreneurship can be a funky journey for sure. Now, I know you already know my next guest. It's Natalie, and Natalie is amazing. She has been all over our show. She is all over the 262 project. She's in the book. She's on the stage. We play the same game. It is super fun. She inspires and motivates people, and she jumps on to do so any chance that she gets. And that's what we both do, and that's what we're here. So this is Natalie McQueen. And if you remember, we introduced you to her as the legacy expert because this woman's got a big heart and a lot of information to share about legacy. And so I'm going to get right to it. I'm going to introduce Natalie. So Natalie, welcome to the Mission Accepted podcast show. Once again, we are so happy that you are back.
Oh, I am so happy to be back, Deb. This is so exciting. We're getting close to the big launch, and just the women that are part of this have just been amazing to meet and to hear.
It's been momentous. Isn't it interesting? I mean, I think even in your topic, when people are talking about legacy and they're talking about, what mark they want to leave on the world. I mean, the fact that we're both in this project is not by mistake. I mean, I think I think it's divine because we both work in the world of betterment, but we also try to get people to see what it is that we're doing now and how that imprints in the future. And you deal with legacy all day, every day. And I think that must be a major component for you around people wanting, it's so interesting when the things that you find out about people that you don't know. I mean, I always love playing that game. Sometimes it's, when you're in circle or when you're at an event or whatever, it's like, turn to the person beside you and tell them something they don't know about you. Or
Exactly.
We do it on the 262, right? Like, what's something that people don't know about you? And I just interviewed one of our, rock stars, Sandy Rutherford, and she's like, "Oh, I've seen The Sound of Music 50 times." I'm like, that's something people should know about you. You know what I mean? Don't call that, like, get that. Make sure you write that in your legacy notes. But I know we talked a little pre-show about sometimes when people hear the word legacy, they automatically go to the mindset about maybe that it's part of a will and all the things that a will entails and the assets and things. But you're talking about legacy from a different aspect. Yes, incorporating, but different aspect. Can you explain to me the difference between, leaving your wishes in a will in terms of things that you want to leave to people and leaving a legacy to the people that you know and care about?
Absolutely. So legacy to me is such, I want to change the whole meaning of legacy, because legacy can be those important documents. It can be the wills. It can be, and then often people will say, well, I don't have a whole lot of money, so I don't even need to bother with that. You know what? That's not what it's about to me. To me, it is your heartfelt messages documented. It doesn't have to be a published book. It can be in a journal. It can be in an envelope on a piece of paper, and the to who it's to on the front, and then make sure that that's in a place where that person could actually get to it. I hear story after story of, I wish I would have had those final words from my mom, or I wish I would have had a recording of my dad telling the stories of being a child and the little troublemaker he was, right? Because sometimes as our kids, they don't know our stories. Either we don't tell them to protect them.
I think we all just went, for certain reasons. We don't want them to do what we did.
Exactly. But once they're adults, they may think that's funny that something happened, you got sent to the principal's office. So it could be you getting on a Zoom, pressing record, and sharing some of those stories, sharing your favorite ice cream as a child, sharing your favorite or your first date with your husband, right? And I know I touched on this the first interview we did, but that rocked me to the core when I watched the documentary messages from the Tower of 9/11.
Mm.
And those individuals that were up in the tower trapped and calling their loved ones, wanting that one more conversation, leaving that message on the answering machine or on someone's cell phone. And the documentary talks about the people that actually got those messages and listened to them and now can't delete them because that's their last touch point with that person. So that's kind of on the negative end of that. What about having that for your family? Because we're not guaranteed tomorrow. So what about having those messages prepared, having those little fun stories or written letters or a published book? You can publish a book and put stories, pictures, family trees, anything you want. It can be published for the world or it can be published to your family. So these are the things that people will say once they've lost a loved one. I wish I would have got those stories. I wish I would have had that recording. I wish when they were in the hospital, I thought about asking them some of those questions, but I didn't, right?
Yeah.
So don't live with those regrets. Press play, whether it's on your phone or on Zoom, and start talking. But then the next most important part is make sure that those images, those pictures, those written letters or videos are on a platform where you're not paying per month to have them stored. Because if you go and no one knows that that's being paid for every month, that will disappear. And make sure that somebody knows where those are. And that's one of the things I help people. I have partnered with a company that stores your information, your videos, pictures for your lifetime and 100 years, and you need a beneficiary on the account. So if something happens to you, it can be safely notified to the next person.
That's smart.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's smart, because I'm sure there's many things that have gone unnoticed, many things that have not been, or things that have been just not notified. Like, I mean, who would know? So, I mean, for those that are visually, it's like one of my favorite things is this black crow. You know what I mean?
Right.
So my desk and hangs out with me and Crow Lady. And maybe that there's just something about that you want to tell somebody, but you don't think of those things because, like you said, sometimes we make things not as important, or like, but someone that would be really important to someone, or something that you said, or sharing a story. Like, I remember driving with my son, and we were it takes a while to get to my daughter's for dinner. And so we were driving, and I said, why don't you ask Nana about her first job?
Yeah.
And I didn't even know the information that she was sharing, right? I was like, I thought I knew that, right? Because he was starting his first job, and he actually thought it was cool. And he actually thought my mom was cooler than he normally thinks she is. Do you know what I mean? Like,
that's so cute.
he loves her, but she's like not cool, right? But her first jobs were working in a dry cleaning place until she ended up teaching music. I think it was Fred Murray, or what is it? It's an old anyways, she used to teach dance classes, and he's like, oh, that's
Fred Astaire?
Not Fred Astaire, but it's probably Canadian. It's probably a big dance company here. But he was like, oh, and I could see him like, oh, she just got cooler. But who knows to know? Anyways, I don't want to go into my stories. I think that that's really, but as an example, those kind of things are really important. And look, I think that this conversation that you have, I love how you call it legacy, because sometimes when you say the word will, or sometimes when it's like, should really get down on paper, I bet you have more people that have said, well, they can't say it, but like they wish they had done that, or wish they had taken the time. Because like you said, we don't, there's no promises. But why do you think it is that people avoid taking the time to really do this? It's not that they don't love their family, not that they don't love their friends.
Right.
I raised my kids to have this conversation really open-minded. I'm like, okay, who wants my favorite Baryshnikov picture? By the way, neither of them do. So they're like, you can take that one with you. You take that one with you, right? So I'm like, oh, that's disrespectful. But why don't people talk about this? Why don't people get it done?
I think it's a few reasons because I can relate a little bit. My
Mhm.
grandmother to this day is still alive. She just turned 104 in August. So I've got longevity in my family. So when I was 50, we went on a family vacation and I had a near-death experience and almost didn't come home from that. That's what woke me up to like, holy crap, we're not guaranteed tomorrow. I may have longevity in the family, but I may not make it back from the grocery store.
Mhm.
I think so many people don't think of the what could happen, and then they don't think of what kind of mess will I leave my family in if I went tomorrow?
Mm.
When you stop to think about that, you're like, oh my gosh, does anyone know the passwords to my computer? Does anyone know what kind of funeral or celebration of life I want? Does anyone know what kind of music that I want played there? Like, there's so many little things. What about, like you said, I have one heart necklace. I have two daughters. Is that going to cause a war? Or like you said, maybe neither of them want it. But if we don't put those everything down and think about, like I said, the house, the cars, the important things, but the little things that can be meaningful.
Mhm.
Like, this is my favorite piece of jewelry because it was given to me on Mother's Day, probably 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And so um, for someone else, they may have something that was handed down for generations and they want it passed down to make sure. So instead of, like, my motto is don't leave a mess, leave a legacy, clear those things up, put them on in documents and have them correctly, notarized that this is how it is. And then your computer passwords and all your accounts, where is that will kept?
Mhm.
Where is the contact person for insurance? Or, just there's so many things. Cryptocurrency, there's an example.
Oh, wow. Didn't think we were going to have that conversation. What a direction to go in. Interesting. Tell.
Well, it's same because never mind one password, crypto has what, 24 passwords.
Oh
And
my.
it's not like, oh, excuse me, customer service, can you help me get into my crypto account? It's like, you don't know your passwords, you're done. There's no, there's no help there. So
Right.
those are the important things that people just breeze through and don't think about the tomorrow, what could happen, and what could be lost or what could cause your family a lot of stress if you just don't take the time to organize it.
Mhm.
And I try to make it fun because think about, at the end, who do you want to acknowledge? Who do you want? Like, I think, and this is my sense of humor, I want to make some, like, you play this video at my funeral and I'll be like, oh no, no crying. Let's celebrate. We had some good times, and like, you can make it as fun as possible. We all know that we have an end point at some time, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know,
Um, and I think that everything that you're saying helps eases the mind. It's kind of, I think it's psychological, right? It's psychological. I know for some people, I've been nagging on my brother. Oh my God, have mercy. I actually booked a time and said, okay, we're going to get this done. Like, I don't care if it's scrapped on a piece of paper and go get it notarized, like something like,
right,
you've got four daughters, you've got this. And I think the motivator was, if you don't do this, that the government takes a swoop, at least
yeah,
in,
that too.
they take what they take it. So you've been working this hard. Sometimes it has to be putting that other person first to get people. I think there's just something psychological about, I don't want to do it because it makes it real. I don't want to do
Right,
it because it's and it's also a conversation we haven't been raised with. Now, I know that it was an interesting conversation when I was talking to, and my children are 10 years apart. So here's
right,
my daughter old enough to have the conversation, and my son's just sitting there like, I just want the TV. You know what I mean? Like, he's like, give me the TV, or I have this coin collection. He's like, oh, I'm circular cool, just give me those. She can have
yeah,
whatever. But it's something that I've raised my kids to have a common conversation with.
Mhm.
Ironic, we do this. I'm heading out in 2 weeks to my daughter's, and like my daughter and son and go, okay, make your pick. But so I've raised them with, this is not a difficult conversation to have. And I think that, but with my mother, I'm like, can you please tell me where your will is? Please
Right.
tell me you have a will. And it's a different culture. Like they're just like, we don't talk about that. I'm like, well, we
Yeah.
better talk about that.
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly. Yeah. And our, our grandparents' generation, I mean, there could be like the money under the mattress type of thing because they don't trust the banks or stuff. Like,
Mhm.
there's so many things that somebody should um know so you can
Yeah.
help
Yeah. And
situation.
yeah, like even with my daughter, so my daughter has a set of my grandmother's dishes, and I'm like, okay, it's time for you to get the gold china. And she said something interesting to me. She goes, Mom, I don't really remember Grandma Brown. Like, I didn't really, and she didn't say this in a rude way. She goes, I don't
Right.
really know the lady. And I thought,
Right.
oh my goodness, you don't know all those incredible stories that I know about Grandma.
Yep.
So they had to come through me, but I didn't even realize she didn't remember. Like, no wonder she doesn't want all these dishes. She's like, I don't know,
Right.
you know what I mean? So, and she didn't say it in a rude way, but
Right.
I was like, we I think for me, my grandchildren are 1 and 3, right? I'd
Mhm.
like them to know some cool things, like my first concert,
Absolutely.
or,
Yeah.
yeah, so into music, or the day I found Janis Joplin album, which was my mom's, and I think those stories make for heart-centered connection.
I agree.
Those are the stories that can get passed down.
Yep. And you may have a trait that you're like, oh my gosh, great grandma did that too. And it's not too late for you to record yourself of those stories that you remember of your grandma so they can be passed down for generations, right? It
Mhm.
doesn't have to stop with you just telling your daughter, then your daughter going, oh, I forget what she said, maybe this.
Yeah,
She pull it up and go, oh my gosh, you want to hear a story of great grandma Brown, did you say?
yeah.
Yeah.
That's really important. That's interesting. That's really, thank you for that, Natalie, because I think we need to, and I'm talking obviously to the audience, but think about the stuff we know from the
Mhm.
generations before that our generations don't know.
Yep.
That's great lineage, really
Exactly.
great lineage. It gives that historical, and there's great cultures, right? Like Europeans are kind of have a bit of an edge on us, I think, in that way, where they pass down, oral tradition and oral
Yep.
stories. But even now, I'm sure some of that's kind of washed away a little bit.
Yeah, well, that's one of the things that I do when I'm working with people for legacy, because often we carry down those traditions and stuff, and they may not serve you anymore. And that's okay. Not every tradition, and I don't know if I talked about this last time, but a funny story about a mother and daughter getting ready for Thanksgiving, and they were cooking a ham, and the mother cut both ends of the ham off and put it in the pan. And the daughter said, Mom, why do you always cut the ends of the ham off? Like, what's the story behind that? She goes, I don't know. Grandma always did that, so I just continued that tradition. So they said, well, let's call grandma and see why why we do this. So they call up grandma, and grandma's like, oh, because I had a little tiny oven and it didn't fit. So we would cut it so the ham would fit in the oven.
Yeah.
And it's like, there's no need to do that anymore because, you know,
Yeah.
but so sometimes learning about those traditions, why we do them, can either propel the, I want to do that, I want to continue that, or there's no need, you
Yeah.
know? So it kind of releases it and you appreciate, she was that smart to do that, but we don't need to do it anymore.
And here's what I think. I say this about everything. I mean, I really believe in personal coaches and personal trainers. And I think if someone's procrastinating on something, you can kind of go around the bush 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. I didn't do my wheel this year, so I'll do it next year, which is interesting philosophy. I'm like, oh, you just think like it's like New Year's Eve or something?
Right,
Can happen in those 364 days that you might want that taken care of. But I always say, look, if you're out there and you need to get some stuff done and you want to get some stuff done and you want to do this and you're like, that sounds like a great idea. And you
right.
just notice it's been on your list for a while, hire somebody just Like now,
Right.
just like you would with a personal trainer. Like, look, you want to lose that last 5 or 10 or whatever, and you just can't get it to get it. And you're not getting yourself to the gym. What do? You hire a trainer. If you want your business to be better, you hire a coach. If you want do you know what I mean? And so I think that someone like you, first of all, you're a rarity. Like there's not a lot of people that do what you do. So thank you. But the other side of it is this is not like you put it on the list and get off the list. And I can tell you, as someone who's been attentive in this area, um, because I've seen some of the things that you've seen, and I've seen people fighting over a vase. Like it's
Yes.
just, to me, I think it's my responsibility to keep my kids happy and talking to each other and family talking to each
Right.
other. So therefore I want this to be done so that it's not stressful for them. I did it more, I probably got pushed more because I don't want them to have the burden and stress, which is
Right.
what we try to do for people. I think that it's important to get, like you said, all that kind of stuff out and done. But if you're noticing that you're not doing it, then get someone to do it. But when I did do it, it's almost like I went and cleaned my closet. You know how that great spring cleaning
Yes,
feeling?
absolutely. It brings peace.
Pressure.
Yes.
It's there. It's in the back of your head. You got to get it done. I felt so accountable and responsible, and I felt efficient, and I
Yeah.
felt like I took a big check mark off my list.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing too is people think it's going to cost them thousands and
Yeah.
thousands of dollars. But you know what? Even having it handwritten on a paper and it notarized can be better than nothing, right? So just start to think about those things. And that what is one of the products that will be coming out in a couple months.
Mhm.
I'm doing a workbook and it's called My Legacy Vault. And it will have areas of everything that we talked about and so much more that you can fill out and have it in a safe space that someone knows where it is. That's a big key.
Very cool. Well, look, why don't we do this? I'm going to completely switch this all out. So I'm going to ask you a kind of cool, funky question. We're going to shift this. But before we do, I know it's in the show notes. People know where to find you. But in case we've missed that and people are listening, not watching, can you let people know where to go and find you?
Sure. So on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Natalie McQueen or Gifts of Legacy.
Okay.
And then my email is giftsoflegacy@gmail.com.
Perfect. Perfect. Okay. So that being said, let's talk music, shall we? Because I just finished talking about, when you were talking about those things, it was like, oh yeah, the first album I played was Pearl because I went and snuck it in the Beautiful album out of my mom's collection and I kept them in my room. So with a little record player. But let's talk about music, because music is such a motivator, inspire, and it's, honestly, I think music is legacy, right? So tell me, you're on your way to a desert island, not the one you went to before. So great and uneventful in that way. And you're going there and it's you, and you're taking your suitcase with you, and you've got room for one album. What could you not imagine not listening to for the rest of your days?
Well, I'm going to switch this up on you
All
because
right.
I did share with you.
To be. I was like, I know the answer to this one.
I shared with you the Dave Matthews
Yeah.
song that my husband and I experienced. But when I was thinking about legacy and this interview, I was going through my phone, got a new phone. Had all these videos and I went through some of my videos, and a video from 4 years ago, right before my grandmother's 100th birthday celebration. We were in an Airbnb. My aunts and uncles had flown in from all over. So there was probably about 30 of us at the home. And my both sides of my family are very musical, but this was my dad's side of the family. So 4 brothers, and they all play guitar and they all sing. And so what I realized thinking about this is when I grew up, my brother's room was right beside mine. My dad would sit at the top of the stairs and play guitar and play us to sleep.
Oh,
And I
wow.
just thought everyone had that, right? So I grew up with music all the time. It was playing. My dad would play and sing. And it was something that you didn't appreciate that it was different until you saw other families and you're like, oh, you don't have any musical entertainment in your family.
That's right. Like, what do you mean?
Yeah. And then when we went to see grandma, everyone brought their guitars and we sang. So back up to the story with right before my grandmother's 100th birthday, all of the families there, the four brothers have their guitars and we're all singing. And I recorded one of our favorite songs, which is John Denver, Country Roads.
Oh,
Right? Classic. And so it was just like when I looked at the video, everyone was just singing full on out. We were so happy to be together. It was that magical moment. And shortly after that, two of our family members passed.
oh, wow.
So that will never happen again.
Yeah.
And I have that on video that I can enjoy and just remember those times together. And that song will always be special to me.
Wow.
So, yeah.
That's a great, I just bought the album because it was my very first album that I ever got, because we used to sit on the living room floor when I was a little girl and watch the Glenn Campbell show. Yeah. So anyway, thank you very much for sharing. People know where to find you. Natalie, thank you for coming back on the show. And look, you guys know that there's this cool rockin' 262 stand up, speak up, show up party going on. And it's not stopping. It's not stopping. It's going on and it's going on. And we now have a public Facebook page. So you can go find the 262 mission and hop on there and just be inspired and motivated and empowered. And it's for women and those that support women. So please go there. And if you want to be sitting where Natalie is and you want to come on the show, I want to hear from you. So go to deb@debdrummond.com. It's not difficult. deb@debdrummond.com, and you can just put contact on any page and go, I want to go on the show. If you've got a message, you've got a passion that you want to share. So Natalie, thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
Listeners and audience and viewers, thank you for being with us. And until we meet again, be well and stay groovy. Bye for now.